True or false? Same-sex marriage will not affect your family.
Hello, I'm Tony Perkins, President of the Family Research Council here in Washington, D.C. You may be asking yourself, how will same-sex marriage affect my family? Well, based on the evidence, everything changes when same-sex marriage becomes legal. If it is legalized, then it must be taught as normal, acceptable, and moral behavior in every public school. That means public schools in every grade, even kindergarten, must teach your children to accept same-sex marriage. This really confuses children. Don't believe me? It's already happened in Massachusetts. Well, Robin, tell me what happened with your kids.
Well, back in March of this year, our son came home Friday afternoon and bounded in the front door and said, "Mom, Dad, guess what? Our teacher read us the funniest book. It was so silly." And we asked him, "What did you mean by that?" He said, "Well, it was about a prince who was getting married, but he didn't marry a princess. He married a prince. Isn't that so silly, Mom?" We were both really shocked. We thought, oh.
Maybe he has the details wrong.
You were hoping.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
That afternoon, we sent the teacher an email message. The teacher called back and said that yes, it was a book about two princes who got married.
Well, what book was it?
It's called King and King. It's a story that introduces the idea of men having a romantic relationship and getting married. We were shocked.
Another astonishing thing is that our son was able to quote sentences from the book. It made that much of an impression on him.
And your son is how old?
He's 7 years old, in 2nd grade.
And they read this book to him?
Yes, in the formal classroom setting with his teacher as an authority figure presenting this concept as something that is good and right and the way things should be.
And that forced you all to do what?
Well, we needed to talk to our children and sit them down and tell them what our views on homosexuality are, that we don't believe that this is correct behavior, and that in our family we choose not to follow that kind of behavior. And we were not prepared to talk about this subject at the age of 7 years old. The teacher told me that gay marriage is legal in Massachusetts and they have the right to teach that in the school. I felt very violated that such an important social issue was presented, that I have certain feelings on, was presented in a positive way that was opposite of what our family holds dear and valuable. And I felt like the school was trying to chip away at my child's moral foundation and undermine our parental authority. And it was so upsetting because I entrusted my son to his teacher and to the school.
And I think that's a tragedy. That's just terrible that I can't tell my kids, I want you to listen to what your teacher says and believe and do those things. After a lot of thought between us, we decided, well, we really ought to talk to the teacher. We ought to express to the teacher how disappointed we are, how violated we felt, that our trust had been abused. And we went down this path, and every turn that we took, our faith and our trust in the system that I think we as Americans take for granted eroded.
It was really upsetting because we trusted the school system and really thought that as good Americans we could work this out. As concerned parents who desire the best for their child, we really felt that we could work it out, and they wouldn't work with us.
Some of these issues today are being elevated and talked about and promoted in a secular fashion to the point that there is a distinct and outward bias against anyone of any kind of a religious background that feels strongly about that.
I have very consciously worked hard to instill moral values in my children and to give them a strong religious foundation that they can stand on and be proud of, especially when times are tough. And I feel very upset that the school is deliberately trying to chip away at that moral foundation and violate my parental guidance.
In reflecting on all of this, both Robin and I have thought, someday we are going to stand before God. And we're going to be held accountable for how we raised our children. And I could not stand idly by and watch this happen and not say something. I couldn't face God and answer to that responsibility if I had just gone away, which is, I think, what they wanted us to do.
Do you see the implications of same-sex marriage being legalized in your state? It affects every family and every child, including yours.
To protect marriage in Maine, you and your friends must take action today. Call your legislators and tell them to vote no on Senator Damon's bill that would legalize same-sex marriage. A no vote protects traditional marriage in Maine. Call Senate Democrats today at 207-287-1515. Call Senate Republicans at 207-287-1505. Call House Democrats today at 207-287-1430. Call House Republicans at 207-287-1440. For more information, go to MaineMarriageAmendment.com.